Hey everybody, wish I could see you. Been thinking lots about you and I miss you lots. Hoping everybody's doing really, really well. I am going to be at 11 o'clock every day doing a video, and then about 11:30 I'll post it and stay online in Google Classroom for anybody to chat with me about either the contents of the video or anything else you're working on here at Khan Academy. I wanted to let you know a few things because I've had several questions. Number one, you won't have to repeat 6th grade. Number two, yes, I'm doing grades for 3rd quarter. I will do grades for 4th quarter as well. Since you're not required to be doing all the work in 4th quarter, if you aren't able to do it, then you will get an IE, which means that I had insufficient evidence to give you a grade. But for those of you who do the work, you will be able to be graded by the end of the year. So today's lesson is about the surface area of rectangular prisms. We've been working in geometry, and I can point over there, so maybe you can remember there's those signs over there. We've done the number system, we've done the algebra, we've done ratio, rates, and percents, and today we're starting, well actually we already started geometry. We're halfway through geometry. We made it to the area of triangles, parallelograms, and composite shapes, and we're moving on to surface area. So we're still in area. So that's the first thing I want to do, is talk about the word area. Remember, area always means the exact same thing. Area is always asking you how many squares. You're correct. Squares. How many squares? So the area of a triangle was a little bit difficult for mathematicians, as you know, just to review what we've already done, because a triangle, you can't easily divide that into squares. But what we learned was you can make a rectangle and the triangle is half of that area. So we learned to say the base times the height, and then to cut that in half. You can also write it half base height, and hopefully you remember the motion that we made to remember it, to get that into our brains. Base times height, cut in half. So that's the review. So we are still trying to figure out how many squares. So in surface area, we are looking at a rectangular prism. A rectangular prism is another word for a box. We mathematicians like to say things in the most complicated way possible. So, a box, and it's rectangular. How many different faces are on a box? 6 is correct, and let's label what they are. They are the top, bottom, front, back, left, and right. Top, bottom, front, back, left, and right. Those are the 6 faces of a rectangular prism. In 6th grade, you are required to be able to find the area on the outside. Remember, how many little squares would it take to cover this box? Of a rectangular prism only. In 7th grade, you start looking at different sorts of shapes, but here in 6th grade, we're still just looking at the box. Okay. This is a 3-dimensional, a 2-dimensional representation of a 3-dimensional box. And we've practiced drawing this quite a bit. I'd like you to pause the video right now and practice drawing a 3-dimensional rectangular prism. Okay, I'm assuming you practiced. Remember, we learned a few different methods. One method was to start with this, do our 3 lines, all 3 of these lines at the same angle, straight across, straight up and down, and voila. We learned this method, the Y method, where we make the Y here, straight up and down, and then we make the rhombus on top. We also learned the 4-dot one, but I can't remember that one. So if you remember it, good job. I forgot how to do that. Okay. Another way we can see a rectangular prism is looking at if we took the paper and covered it and then folded it back out. And that is called a net. And I have to go grab my nets over here, so excuse me. I have some pictures of nets up here, some actual nets. But here is a rectangular prism, and if I unfold it, it makes a net. It's flat. One of the things you're responsible for is being able to recognize, is this a net of a rectangular prism? So if you look up here at these, this one's really small, so hopefully you can see that. One, and then the yellow is the net here. Here's a net, and here's a net. Think for a minute, which ones of these nets are actually accurate? They are a net for a rectangular prism. Pause the video and think about that. Okay, hopefully you have done that. At this point in time, which ones can we quickly eliminate because that we know they're not a net? The first one would be this one. Why? Because there's only 5, correct. There have to be 6 faces. This one has 6 faces. 1, 2, 3, 4. This one has 6 faces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one has 6 faces. So we can first eliminate this one. Now, we can look at this one. This one's a little bit tricky because there's only a point connecting these two things. And of course, what would happen when we cut this off is this would no longer work as a net because this would have a very tenuous little connection. Is it a net? It's technically, in all the questions I've ever seen you asked, they would not count this as a net because this point isn't enough. It doesn't share an edge. Remember, let's go through our vocabulary again. This is a rectangular prism. This is a net. This, I'm going to go back to my one that's all put together. This is a rectangular prism. This is a face. Face, 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 face. This is an edge. And this is a vertex. Vertex, or one of them is a vertex. How many vertexes in a rectangular prism? 8 is correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many edges in a rectangular prism? 12 is correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. How many faces in a rectangular prism? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. Okay, so the vocabulary: vertex, edge, face, rectangular prism. So now back to this. So they need an edge to be connected in order to be a net. And so this one is not, even though it does have 6, because no edge is connected. So we'll get rid of this one. Now we're down to these two. This one is a rectangular prism with all squares and has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this one has different sizes of rectangles. So I'd like you to take your attention and focus on the edges. So hopefully you have noticed that this one will in fact work, because as I fold it, I'm not going to have anything, I'm going to be able to get it, whoops. because we know space isn't my friend. Okay. It made a rectangular prism. It made the box. So this one works. So you don't always see it with a 4 in a row and like a cross. You can sometimes, but not always. And finally, this one. Is this a rectangular prism? And the answer is no. And why? Because look at this edge here and this edge here. This edge has to be the same length as this edge. So see what happens when we try to put it together. We fold it over and we fold it over, and that part works fine, our top, bottom, left, and right. But our front and backs aren't long enough. So this one is also not a net for a rectangular prism. Okay, so today we were just looking at the vocabulary. I'd like you to do some of the early videos in Khan Academy on rectangular prisms and finding the surface area. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Miss you all. Now I have to walk forward awkwardly and turn off the video because no one can be in the room except me. And you might be wondering why I'm in the room and not in my house like everyone else. And that's because I don't actually have internet at home. And so I have been given permission to be in my classroom 1 hour a day. And then they detox the entire room after I leave. And I only can enter one door. Anyway, thinking about all of you, hoping you're doing well.